Here we go. Sorry for the late start today, guys. We had a little bit of technical difficulties on my end. Computer was being all weird. Looks like we're in the twilight zone, but that's okay because we're finally here. Welcome to today's Forks Over Knives webinar. We're going to be talking about the truth about protein and other secrets of plant-based athletes, and not just plant-based athletes, but top performing world champion, Olympic level plant-based athletes. So it's going to be a really fun webinar. This is a very hot topic, and we have two brilliant people with us today. The first is Matt Frazier. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great, Cyrus. Thank you.
Fantastic. And we also, what's that?
I have a blue band here because I'm not in the hospital or something. I'm on vacation, and it's my resort pass.
Oh, that's so that you can go drink margaritas down by the pool?
Exactly. Or just roam the streets without getting arrested.
I love it. I love it. Where are you, by the way? We're on vacation.
I'm in Orlando. It's not a real vacation. It's my son is here for training for soccer, and we're accompanying him.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Pretend like it's a vacation. That's fine. That's fine.
Exactly. That's what we do.
And then we have your partner in crime. We got Robert Cheeke. How you doing, Robert?
Cyrus, I am doing great. I am dripping with sweat because I'm tuning in from my phone. I was trying to get my computer working. And once you know it, right before going live, it would not work. So I apologize if I'm dripping sweat. I wasn't just working out. I am actually trying to manage here.
I'm trying to calm your nerves. You know what? It's okay, because here's the thing. Things always break when you don't want them to. Murphy's Law is that, you know, whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and it's okay. This Forks Over Knives audience already knows who you are, already loves you. Same thing with Matt. We're here to have a good time and share some really powerful information that can change people's lives. And there's no doubt in my mind, whether you're on a phone or whether you're on an Atari, it doesn't matter. It's all going to be fine. And we're going to get some good information today. So do me a favor, go into the chat box. For those of you who are here with us, we have over 1,100 people already here of your raving fans, which is awesome. So go into the chat box, guys. If you're plant-based already, write a 1 in the chat box. Just put the number 1 in there. If you're not plant-based, write a number 2 in the chat box. And if you're somewhere in between, you're undecided, maybe you're transitioning, you're halfway there, put a 1.5 or any other fraction thereof. And as soon as I do this every time. I ask, and then people put in their responses, and the responses come in so fast that I cannot read them.
That's a lot of responses.
I mean, this is ridiculous. This is what happens when you ask 1,100 people the same question at the same time. But point being here is what if my brain is trying to do some quick math here, and it looks like the average is a 1.327. I'm just making all of this up off the cuff. So it looks like most of you are plant-based, which is actually pretty good. But then there's definitely some 2s and some 1.5s. And so the idea here is that what Matt and Robert are going to help share with you today is yet another reason, as if you guys haven't already heard about a lot of reasons why being plant-based is such a transformative strategy for your life today and in the future. You've probably seen it on previous webinars. You've seen the benefits from a cardiovascular perspective, the benefits from a diabetes perspective, the benefits from a dementia perspective, the benefits to your kidney, to your liver, to your thyroid gland, the benefits for women, the benefits for men. And now we're going to be talking about the benefits for athletes. So if you guys aren't familiar with Robert and Matt, let me tell you a little bit about them, and then I will stop talking and I will let them take over. They co-authored the New York Times best-selling book called The Plant-Based Athlete. And if I haven't given you guys a round of applause for becoming New York Times bestsellers already, I am very proud of you guys. And I know that you guys worked unbelievably hard to make that happen. And the book itself is also fantastic. Not only is it being widely circulated, but it's just very good content. And I know you're going to be talking about a lot of that today. The first man, myth, and the legend is Robert Cheeke. So Robert grew up as a skinny farm kid, as he likes to call it, in Oregon, and he adopted a vegan lifestyle at the age of 15 in 1995. So this was before the iPhone, for those of you who don't even remember what life was like back then. In addition to co-authoring The Plant-Based Athlete, he is the author of Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness, as well as Shred It, as well as The Plant-Based Muscle. Now, Robert is often referred to as the godfather of vegan bodybuilding. If you've ever seen this guy in the gym or you've ever seen him with his shirt off, then you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. He tours the world sharing his story. He's a multi-sport athlete. He's an entrepreneur. He is a very nice guy. He's incredibly smart. And he's the founder and president of the online community for vegan bodybuilding and fitness. In addition, we also have Matt Frazier. Now, Matt is from Charlotte, North Carolina. He's a vegan ultra marathoner. He's an author. He's an entrepreneur. And he's best known as the founder of the No Meat Athlete movement and the host of the No Meat Athlete radio podcast. Matt, what does it feel like to have started a movement? That's kind of a big deal. Not many people can say that.
You know what? I used to say that about myself. It was like a self-proclaimed thing. And then one day, Seth Godin, the internet, the marketing author who I worship, he said it. He put it in a book, I think. And so that now I just run with it.
He said that you had started a movement?
He put it in one of his books. He said that I was the founder of the No Meat Athlete movement, which I thought, all right, good enough. Now I can say it all the time.
It's definitely on my list of things to do in life, like on my bucket list. Starting a movement is probably pretty high up there. So I'm going to take notes from you for sure. Now, Matt's first book was The No Meat Athlete, Run on Plants and Discover Your Fittest, Fastest, Happiest Self. And then the companion cookbook called The No Meat Athlete Cookbook. And that was named a Sports Illustrated Best Health and Wellness book back in 2017. So since that time, he is now co-authored The Plant-Based Athlete with Robert Cheeke. And again, New York Times bestselling book. These guys don't mess around. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Cyrus Kambata. I have a PhD in nutritional biochemistry, and I've been living with type 1 diabetes for 15 years. I teach people how to transition to a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet using the Mastering Diabetes method. And I've been able to see tremendous improvements in my overall health. And I've been able to help thousands of people around the world do the same thing. And I am here to be your webinar host today as I let the two of these geniuses take over. So before we get started, let's just do a couple of quick housekeeping things, and then we can get to the actual meat of the presentation, pun intended. Okay. What I want to do is I want to actually share my screen with you guys and show you something cool. If only I could figure out how to share my screen. There we go. There we go. Let's see. Can you see my screen now? Does that look good?
Looks good. I can see it on my phone.
Okay, there we go. So here we go. Now, for those of you guys who may not be as familiar with forks over knives as the rest, I want to take a couple of minutes and share with you one of the things that makes forks over knives so incredibly special. It's truly what it is their dedication to education and community. Their mission in life is to connect experts like Matt and Robert with you, because that's how you end up learning information and transforming your life. And the more people whose lives get transformed, the better. Okay. Their goal is to make whole food, plant-based eating easy and enjoyable and accessible and convenient in ways that it has never done before. Okay. Now we know that you've probably had to make some major adjustments to your routines if you're eating a plant-based diet, and it may be challenging to create nutritious meals, especially if you're new to plant-based eating. So the Forks Over Knives team recognize that, and they want to help make your life even easier. So for anyone who's adopting a plant-based diet, but may not be as comfortable in the kitchen, the Forks cooking courses can give you awesome confidence and culinary skills to prepare really tasty and really delicious plant-based meals. The best part is that they're offering their course at a 25% off discount through August 2nd. So let me talk to you about this course here. The Forks cooking courses are led by professional plant-based chef educators. They are presented 100% online, and they're designed for you to participate at your own pace so that you can plan your curriculum around your own busy schedule, because it's different than my schedule and it's different than everyone else's. But the best part is that you have lifetime access to the lessons, and you can revisit them anytime you want. Now, there's two fun and flexible courses to choose from. The ultimate course is an immersive experience, which is focused on foundational plant-based cooking techniques. And that's going to help boost your skills and your confidence. The essentials course is a shorter course with lessons including things like knife skills and basic oil-free cooking techniques and daily meal planning strategies to help kickstart your whole food plant-based eating cooking routine and habits. Now, both courses are packed with lessons, with videos, with clear instruction, and a great selection of brand new recipes. So there's plenty of content and there's no worries about that. There's also a lot of fun interactive quizzes. There's instructor graded activities, and there's special live events for you to participate in while you're going through this process. Okay. Now, thousands of students have enrolled in these courses and the positive response is overwhelming. Okay. Most students finish their course with better kitchen skills, with a huge boost to their cooking confidence, and they just like their life a little bit more, which is always good. The courses are a great way to connect with other students, which is awesome. And it can help you make friends in the classroom and in your support groups. Now, as you guys probably know, healthy, fresh foods are very important for immune health and to fight off diseases like diabetes, like I have type 1 diabetes, as well as heart disease and kidney disease and many others. Now, you're going to feel great knowing that you're not only investing in learning cooking skills, but those cooking skills are actually going to help improve the quality of your life and give you a better experience on this planet. And who doesn't want that? So the last thing I'll say here about the cooking course is that it starts on August 9th. Okay. And if you enroll before August 2nd, we will give you 25% off the regular price. And one more time, the self-paced nature of this course allows you to start whenever you want. So you don't have to miss out on anything. And if you want, you can even get one for you and one for a friend. And the two of you can go through this process together because it's more fun when you do it with a buddy and you guys can crush the course simultaneously. If you're interested, go to forksoverknives.com/cooking-course, as you see on your screen. This is also going to be dropped into the chat box. Just click on that link, go learn about it, and sign up if you're interested. And we can't wait to see you guys on the inside. All right. Now, here's the deal. I'm going to stop talking. I don't want to talk anymore. This is all about you guys. So you guys ready to jump into this and have some fun today?
Ready?
Let's do it.
Cool. Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Cyrus. I'd like to go ahead and get started here. If you guys can hear me, please give a yes or a thumbs up. I'm using my phone here, which is a new experience for me, but I'm going to absolutely rock this. I came prepared, tons of sticky notes, and so I am ready to do this. And first of all, I want to say what an incredible honor it is to be speaking to a Forks Over Knives audience. Forks Over Knives is near and dear to my heart and to Matt's heart, my longtime friend and co-author. I worked for Forks Over Knives back in 2011, and it changed the way that I eat forever, even as a plant-based athlete, where I went on to become, the best shape I've ever been in. It got me in the best shape I've ever been in following this whole food plant-based diet. So we're going to talk about that today. So again, on behalf of myself and Matt, we're honored to be here with Forks Over Knives and want to thank Cyrus as our moderator. And thank you, Cyrus, for the kind introductions. So if you guys can hear me okay, and can you see that flex okay? I just want to make sure. I'm on a little tiny screen here. It's tiny for me, but hopefully that works for you guys. I'm going to jump right into it and start with a simple question. How many of you, what do we have, 1.2 thousand people tuning in? How many of you listening right now know precisely how many calories you consume every day and precisely how many calories you expend every day? Show of hands. Surely you all know this 4-digit number. You could rattle it off. Go ahead and put your 4-digit number in the comments if you like. Okay, I'm not seeing a single number. Maybe, is the audio still working? The reality is 99% of us don't know this number. And that's, not a problem, not an issue for most of us. But do you know who does know this number? Athletes know this number. Athletes know this number because, answer this, if you have no idea how many calories you're consuming and no idea how many calories you're expending every day, how could you possibly know how much to eat in order to burn fat and lose weight, build muscle and gain weight, or stay the same? How could you possibly know? Most of us just guess. And before anyone gets too excited here, and we say this in the book, that no, we don't believe you need to count calories all the time. We don't count calories. You don't need to count calories every day. I know a lot of people follow Esselstyn and Campbell, and of course we don't need to count calories every day. But you know what you should do? You should count them for a week and find out what you really eat. Find out what your habits are, what your behaviors are, what you actually do, and why. Get to the bottom of why we're either staying the same weight or we're gaining weight or we're losing weight, and have some sort of control over it. It's quite amazing. Let me give you a quick example, and then I'll turn it over to Matt here in a moment. But let's just pick a round number. Let's say that that you burn 2,000 calories a day. Just pick this nice round number. You burn 2,000 calories every day, but you don't know what you eat. And after you document it for a week, it's revealed to you that you consume 2,500 calories every day. A surplus of 500 calories every single day beyond what you expend. That's an extra, Matt's the math guy, an extra 3,500 calories a week, right? 14,000 a month, maybe 150,000 extra calories over the course of the year. Is that person very likely to lose weight, which is the number one New Year's resolution goal that so many people in the Western world share? Probably not. It doesn't add up. It's just not practical. So using that same 2,000 calorie goal, so if you burn 2,000 calories every day, but you eat 1,500 calories, are you likely to build muscle and get bigger and stronger? Probably not. Not scientifically. You're in a calorie deficit of 500 calories per day, every single day. You're more likely to lose weight. You'd be lucky if you stayed the same. And what happens if you burn 2,000 calories every day and you consume roughly 2,000 calories every day? Well, indeed, you will stay roughly the same. So how do we figure this out? We actually have some control over it, which is something that is absolutely incredible for anyone, whether you're an athlete or not, to have control over whether we lose weight, gain weight, or stay the same. It's an unbelievable tool to have. If you're taking notes, there's something called the Harris-Benedict equation, or the Harris-Benedict calculator, that anybody can use right now. You can Google it. And what it's going to do is it's going to ask you to input some data, your gender, age, height, weight, and very importantly, your activity level. And that's going to give you a rough number. It's going to use all those different factors and say, okay, based on this gender, this age, this height, weight, and this activity level, and be honest about it, this is the approximate number of calories that you burn every day. It's your basal metabolic rate plus all the other activity that you do, playing sports, going to the gym, walking, hiking, dog walks, whatever it is that you do that's physically active. It's going to give you a number. It's a 4-digit number. And then you'll say, wow, okay, that's roughly how many calories I burn every day. Well, now how do I know what I eat? That's when you use an app, a food tracking app like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer. And for about a week, because 1 or 2 days isn't really long enough sample size, for about a week, document everything that you eat, everything that you drink. You can also document your exercises, your sleep, whatever you like, and determine what your ratio is. Are you consuming more calories than you're expending or not? And from there, based on whatever your fitness goals are, if you're like most Americans, weight loss is one of your top goals. Then you can figure out a plan based on the calorie density of foods we're going to talk about, protein requirements, supplementation, meal planning, meal timing, all of that in order to create a plan that works.
Robert, do you mind if I cut you off here for 1 second?
Yeah, please.
Can I share my screen real quick and pull up the Harris-Benedict calculator that you can find online and show people what type of information they can get?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's a few different versions of it, but it's all pretty much the same. It's just whatever website you're looking at.
Okay, cool. Can you see my screen?
And I was just going to share my example.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Not, I don't see it yet. I just see Cyrus with a spinning, a little spinning wheel.
Yeah, I see it says you have started, but I don't see the actual screen.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay, give me a second.
Yeah, so, well, Cyrus, while you look that up, I will just quickly give my example. So, for example, I'm a male, 42 years old, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, incredibly handsome. Just kidding. That's not one of the criteria. Maybe true, but it's not part of the criteria. But given that, and I work out 4 or 5 days a week, Robert, wow, at a 42-year-old male, 6 foot tall, 200 pounds, you're expending 3,100 calories a day. Wow. What that means is I've got to take in 3,100 calories to maintain weight, to maintain this 200-pound frame. And so that's what I do. And when I deliberately lose weight, which I did recently, I eat fewer calories and I bump my exercise up. So Cyrus, I know you're looking that up, but I also want to move over to Matt here to talk about some of the other aspects of thriving on a plant-based diet as an athlete. So now you get your Harris-Benedict equation, use your MyFitnessPal, you're set to get started. And from there, my good man, Matt Frazier.
Yeah, Robert. And so before we do that, Robert, just to give people a little bit of bearings, I guess. So like you said, there's no need. No one's goal is to track all their calories in and out all the time, because it's not sustainable. And for most of us who are in this for, more kind of holistic reasons, we're attracted to the holistic side of this way of eating, where you eat by how it feels. And, you're not looking at numbers when it comes to food. It's useful for this very short time. It's not meant to be your life. But every now and then when I do this, when I get inspired to, try to put on some muscle, for example, I will go through this routine again. My understanding is that it's about 3,500 calories is equal to a pound. Is that right? So that people can, as they sort of are trying to, estimate how long it's going to take them to reach certain goals. It's 3,500 for a pound. So if you're in a 500 calorie deficit, for example, and you can keep that up for a week, then you can expect to lose about a pound each week that you're doing that. Is that accurate? Just so people kind of can.
Yep. Theoretically, that should work out. Okay. That calculation.
Good. And obviously much more your realm than mine. But like I said, every now and then I get inspired by, those sort of body transformation goals. And that's to me, honestly, that's where you begin with the Harris-Benedict. So what I want to talk about is a little bit more, less about what your body composition is or what it looks like, and more about a question that I get all the time. And I think one that kind of belongs at the beginning of a presentation like this, which is, why does a plant-based diet work for athletes? Because we are, over the past decade, maybe 20 years, if you've been paying attention for a long time, we hear that a plant-based diet might be good for athletes, which is honestly a massive change from the story before then. When I got into this, it was 13 years ago, 2009. And when I did, I was excited to become vegetarian, not yet vegan, didn't really know what that was. But it was really driven by ethical, just reasoning. I just felt better about myself if I was not eating animals. I just didn't want to do it anymore. But I thought, no way would it work as an athlete, because there just weren't the stories out there. But 13 years later, especially over the past decade, I'd say, that story has completely changed. The game changers obviously came along, helped us out, helped that movement. Rich Roll, Scott Jurek, these people, Brendan Frazier, their stories became very popular. And that's a great thing. But what it kind of gave rise to, and even the Forks Over Knives, I remember they featured Mac Danzig in the Forks Over Knives movie. And one of the questions was, why does this work? Well, running No Meat Athlete, this site it's there to kind of shed light on this whole area, right? Plant-based fitness. It's one of the questions that I've gotten almost every single talk I've ever given. Near the end, somebody says, well, why is it, why would a plant-based diet supposedly work for sports? When what we've heard for all these years is the opposite. So it's worth just kind of getting into quickly, big picture still, why would it work? And the first one, as you've been talking about, Robert, is this weight loss issue. This isn't really one necessarily that would apply to top level or professional athletes, because usually those people, they've dialed in their nutrition to the point where they're at their ideal weight already. If there was weight to lose and it would benefit their performance, they would have already found a way to do that. But for the every man, every woman, someone like me, when I started to do this, I was training to qualify for the Boston Marathon. I was 10 minutes shy of my time, having taken 90 minutes off of what I had to, but still 10 minutes shy of actually getting into the race. The biggest benefit perhaps to me in the very first 6 months when I made this change was that I lost some weight. And I was not a heavy person to begin with. I think I was 140 pounds when I started this. But when I went vegetarian, again, I ate vegan, so there's even more benefit to be had from going all the way. I lost like 5 or 6 pounds in the first, I don't know, 3-4 weeks, which is probably right in line with what we just said about the Harris-Benedict. And if you're having that kind of caloric deficit, and that kind of happens for a lot of people naturally. It's not that the plant-based is just like a miracle weight loss diet, because not every single person obviously, just automatically loses weight on it. A lot of other factors go into this, but all else held equal, if you sort of eat the same amount of food, the same volume of food, but you start eating more of it coming from whole plant sources because of a concept called caloric density, which I believe, Robert, you're going to get into in a bit. You end up eating fewer total calories in that same volume of food. And so without even really trying, without going on this for a weight loss reason, you tend to lose some weight if you're someone who, like most Americans or most people in Western cultures, eating a standard diet for food, you're going to be eating very caloric dense food. So the difference when you go to plant-based is very different, or is large. And for me, that weight loss, like to me, over the course of running a marathon, if you can carry 5 less pounds, that there are formulas you can look up and see exactly what the amount is, but you can expect to shave a certain amount of time off per mile for every pound you're lighter. So that's one of the reasons. That's one of the big ones, is that if you can lose weight but maintain strength, which happily I did when I went vegetarian, then you're going to perform better. So that's one that probably applies more to amateurs than to pros, because like I said, the pros have kind of already figured that out. But what's more universal, and this is one that I learned from Brendan Frazier, and like I said, I mentioned Mac Danzig earlier, nearly every single athlete I've ever talked to, asking about why a plant-based diet helps them, they say that they can recover faster when they eat a plant-based diet. And that wasn't something that, like I said, it wasn't one of the motivations for me to do it. But absolutely, I noticed that effect when I went plant-based, is that I was able to get in more and harder, stronger workouts than I ever had before. And crucially, as a runner, I could come back the next day and do that same thing again. And that's the big difference when you're not recovering fully. Let's say you come back 95% recovered and you're trying to train the next day because you're trying to get in whatever 5 or 6 workouts a week because you're training for a big goal like I was back then. If you don't come back 100%, you're gradually digging a hole. So after 10 or 15 or 20 workouts, even when things seem like they're going really great, you're digging this hole where you're not really fully recovering. And eventually this inevitable injury comes along and gets you. And that's what had happened to me over and over and over as I was training to qualify for Boston. So without really realizing what I was doing, it turned out I was recovering way faster. So what is the mechanism that would cause one to recover faster on a plant-based diet, which, like I said, so many people cite as like the primary benefit as athletes? And it's not like, it's not known exactly what it is that does this. And it's something we can theorize about. And it seems like the common answers you will hear, and I believe these are the correct ones, is first of all, that a plant-based diet is anti-inflammatory in nature. So if you eat, a lot of animal products, any kind of processed foods, sugars, fats, especially in non-whole food forms, these are going to they're going to create inflammation in your body. Just like a workout will, right? When you do a workout, you break down the muscle fibers, you get this stress in your muscles, and that leads to your body becoming inflamed as a response to, begin to combat that and repair those muscles. Well, a plant-based diet, as it turns out, much different from an omnivorous or a meat-heavy diet, is anti-inflammatory. Many of the foods in a plant-based diet, especially a whole food plant-based diet like the one that Robert and I and Forks Over Knives recommend, is naturally anti-inflammatory, which is the opposite of an inflammatory diet. We can talk about specific foods, of course, the leafy greens, the nuts and seeds, the tart cherry juice, the turmeric, which is, these are kind of popular, almost superfoods nowadays. But really the entire diet, if you're eating whole, fresh fruits and vegetables specifically, the impact to your body is going to be one that is anti-inflammatory. And so when you do a workout and now your body needs to handle the inflammation that is occurring in the cells and also rebuild those muscles, just, begin the recovery process. If you can eat foods that are going to help that along rather than hinder that, that's going to be a huge benefit to your performance. And so that's a kind of specific example of what is really the more general property. And I mentioned earlier that the plant-based diet is relatively low in caloric density, right? Like the volume of food that you eat contains a relatively low amount of calories compared to a diet that's rich in animal foods. But while it's calorically poor, you might call that, it turns out that it is nutrient dense. So in that same volume of food compared to what you were eating on your omnivorous diet, you're getting fewer calories, but in those calories, you're getting many, many more of the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, antioxidants, all these kinds of things that you actually want to be taking in. So if your body's getting a lot of the nutrition in relatively few calories, it turns out that's exactly the recipe for good, fast, efficient recovery. So that's, the second big factor here that goes into recovering. And what's really cool about this is all these different things I've mentioned, the weight loss, the anti-inflammatory properties of this diet, and the high nutrient density, the antioxidant capacity. While these things are supportive to an athlete who's trying to recover for the next day's workout or a workout 2 days later, they're also exactly the same things that make this diet such a great choice for the long term, right? If you can be somewhat lower weight than you would be otherwise, if you're eating a diet that's rich in anti-inflammatory compounds, fighting that chronic inflammation that is the cause of so much illness, in addition to getting lots and lots of nutrients in relatively low amount of calories, that's not just the recipe for short-term athletic success. That's the recipe for health. And in fact, it is Dr. Joel Fuhrman, who's someone who I've learned a lot from. His recipe for health, his equation for health is that health equals nutrition divided by calories. That is, your health equals your total amount of nutrients, basically, divided by the total number of calories you're taking in. So the more nutrients in the fewer number of calories, of course, assuming you're eating enough to sustain your life, that's going to lead to more health. So it's really cool to me that the answer to this question, why does this work well for athletes, is almost identical to the answer to why does this work well for someone who just wants to live a long time or have a long health span where they are able to, into old age, be mobile and fit and active. So I think it's just such a cool kind of almost coincidence, but of course it's not a coincidence. It's just one of the many great things that this diet does. So Robert, I see people are asking about protein. We put protein in the title, and that's what we get. We get people who want to know about protein. So I will let you take it from here before I chime in a bit.
Yeah, let's get right into the vegan meat of the conversation, which is protein. And here's your answer. I don't know if you can see that. It's right. It shows up on my phone. Here's the deal. So protein is incredibly important. Anybody worried about protein here? Anyone anyone have thoughts about protein? Maybe put a comment in the chat here about all the people that you know that don't get enough of it, perhaps, and wondering where it comes from and how to possibly get enough of this stuff. I think it's important to give a little bit of a background and context here. First of all, general recommendations are 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight for just general maintenance for the non-active person. And since the average right now in 2022, the average height and weight of women right now is 5'3.5", 171 pounds. And the average American male is 5'9", 200 pounds even right now. What that comes out to be, I did the little calculations earlier because we don't always work in kilograms here. That is 62 grams of protein for women and 73 grams of protein for men per day. That is for non-active people, okay? That's just your standard, roughly based on these American averages on body size and everything, that women should get a little over 60 grams of protein a day and men should get a little bit over 70 grams of protein a day, which, there's 4 calories per gram of protein, just as there are 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate, 9 calories per gram of fat, and 7 calories per gram of alcohol. We can do the math and realize that if we hit our calorie needs, if I hit my 3,100 calorie needs per day, or you hit your 2,500 calorie needs, or someone else hits her 2,000 calorie needs or his 2,100 calorie needs, whatever it is, that with any type of diversity of diet, you will reach your protein threshold, your protein minimum requirement easily. End of story. It's easily done. But when you start looking at people who are active, athletes, now you're looking at, and we say this in our book, of course, now you're looking at 1.2 to 2.0 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So from 0.8 for non-active people to 1.2 all the way up to 2.0 for those who are really, really active. So what that looks like is a lot different story. So what that looks like is instead of 62 grams of protein for women, you're starting at 93 grams and going all the way up to 155 grams really, really active women. And for men, you're starting at 109 grams of protein all the way up to 181 grams of protein, right? These are for people who are active, physically active, creating damage to muscle tissues, needing to repair, rebuild, and grow and maintain skeletal muscle structure, which protein does, and other things like the functions of hormones and helping hair and nails and all the other things stay strong. Protein is a vital component of bodily repair, particularly after exercise, which is why it's so emphasized. It is incredibly emphasized as a post-workout meal, right? Or supplement or shake or whatever, because it starts the repair process. It starts that rebuilding process. And so let's just go back to the basics real quick. So what is protein? Protein's a collection of amino acids. Every plant-based food has all the essential amino acids. So let's get that out of the way right now about worrying about incomplete protein. Yes, it's true that many plant-based foods are low in specific essential amino acids. Okay, there are 9 essential amino acids and 11 non-essential amino acids. What does an essential amino acid mean? What does it mean by essential? It's like a direct, like a direct kick in soccer versus an indirect kick. So if it's essential, it means we need to get it from our diet. It's got to come from food. Non-essential are provided within our body, and they work harmoniously, synergistically, holistically within our body with the essential amino acids. And all these amino acids pool together and form protein, which is going to repair, build, maintain skeletal muscle structure, do all these things, help us prevent injuries, stay strong, maintain our physical shape, all that kind of stuff. So protein, and it's worth talking about it for a while here, is incredibly important. And you're going to find the most protein-rich plant foods in things like soybeans and other products made from soybeans, tofu, tempeh, soy milk, that kind of thing. Also, all other legumes, lentils, split peas, black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, all great sources. But, don't get fooled. There's still, in those foods, there's more calories from carbohydrate than there are from protein. Okay, so you can't just say beans are just a high protein food. Well, they're still mostly carbohydrate, right? It's just that our protein requirements are relatively small, and they're targets that are easy to reach, that through diversity of diet and meeting our calorie requirements, we meet our protein requirements. So let me ask you another question. Here, White, take a sip of water. How many people have you met? Maybe put a number, if you don't mind putting a number in the chat. How many people have you met throughout your life who have a clinical protein deficiency? Like, it's been diagnosed, they have a clinical protein deficiency, and this is something that they're getting treated for, and you spend extra care for them and all of that. I'll just wait for the numbers to come in. There's a lot of zeros. How many people have you met? Throw out a number here. Maybe the numbers might change, maybe they stay the same. How many people have you met who consume too much protein? Excess amount of protein, excess amount of calories because of an emphasis on protein, particularly animal protein. I'm seeing a lot, most people. You know what? Whoever said most people, and by the way, shout out to Melanie Weaver from Cobble Hill. That is a tiny little town on Vancouver Island where my father is from. I mean, it's a town of like a few hundred people, I think, maybe 1,000. Melanie Weaver, if you're still here, Cobble Hill. I saw that when you joined. Incredible. Someone said a lot, right? Most people, a lot. You know what? You are statistically correct. Right now, 73.6% of Americans are overweight. 42.5% of Americans are obese. So half to 2/3 of us, or 3/4 of us, are overweight or obese. Now, that is not to body shame anyone. That is to sound the alarm that there are likely other factors going on associated with this obesity and being overweight. There's very likely plaque buildup in arteries, damaging endothelial cells, perhaps a plaque rupture or blockage could be coming in the future. There's very likely heart disease that's happening. There could be diabetes around the corner. There could be hypertension. There could be chronic inflammation from joint pain and soreness from excess calorie consumption. Some of you might have raised an eyebrow when I told you I consume over 3,000 calories a day. Yet you might be surprised to find out that many of our fellow Americans and Westerners, and likely those who are tuning in the Western world, are eating 3,000 to 4,000 calories or more every day without knowing it. Why? Partly our obsession with protein. I need more of this stuff. I want protein water. I want protein popcorn. I want protein when I wake up. I want protein while I'm sleeping. Drink a protein drink and then go back to sleep. I want protein for lunch. I want it for dinner. I want it for dessert. I want it for snacks. I want it after a workout, maybe even during a workout. I want as much of this stuff as possible. And as I talked about on the Rich Roll podcast, one of the problems with that, just this overemphasizing and glorifying one particular macronutrient, is that we miss out. We miss out on the types of foods that we would eat to get more complex carbohydrates into our diet. Now, why is that important? Well, there's 64 times more antioxidants in plant foods than in animal foods. And as Dr. Will Bolsowitz points out, that 164th comes from the plants the animals ate. It's in their tissue, and now you get that 164th. Why not just eat plants? And you want those antioxidants, you're going to have to eat complex carbohydrate-rich foods, not just plant protein sources. You got to focus on complex carbohydrates, fruits and vegetables, leafy greens, legumes, whole grains, that type of stuff. 97% of us, again, these are mostly American statistics. I live in Colorado and I see a lot of American statistics. 97% of us don't consume enough fiber. That's a problem. Many of you have read Fiber Fueled, or you know the benefits of fiber and helping, just in helping keep our bodies healthy and well, and a sign of good health is a high fiber diet for our system. And 97% of us don't eat enough of it because we're largely focused on protein. Many of us would argue maybe the Achilles heel of the American diet is excess dietary cholesterol. Dietary cholesterol only comes from animal-based foods, not from plant-based foods. It doesn't mean you can't raise your cholesterol on plant-based foods, but it doesn't come from those foods. And that's a burden on the Western healthcare system. And it comes from our obsession with protein. Now, if I remember correctly, most people said they haven't met anybody with a true clinical, legitimate, diagnosed protein deficiency, correct? That's why is that? Well, because it doesn't happen unless you're starving. If you're legitimately one of the 800 million people starving, or the 2 billion people that don't have access to adequate calories in the world, largely in African, Asian, South American nations, it could be in the developed countries and the Western world as well. But you typically don't see protein deficiency unless you're literally starving, like you don't have access to food. You don't have the money, you're in poverty, you're in a food desert, you don't have access to food, or you have some sort of eating disorder that you're just not absorbing the amount of protein because it's not being consumed through an eating disorder. Your calories are too low, or it's being regurgitated and not maintained, whatever the case is. You don't see it. Yet almost everyone here said, I've seen lots of people who consume too much protein. And indeed, you're right, because 73.6% of us are overweight in America. Why is that? Matt talked about the inflammation that foods cause. He mentioned a few, but I actually wrote them down from our book, so I just want to read them to you. What causes inflammation? Largely, honestly, it's our obsession with protein and how the protein is packaged. I had this conversation with the guy at the gym yesterday. He was talking about protein. I said, it all has to do with how it's packaged. Is it coming covered in oil and all kinds of bun and cheese and all this extra stuff, mayonnaise or sauces, and just tons and tons of excess calories and fat and saturated fat and dietary cholesterol and all these things? Is it coming in a powdered form? Is it coming in a whole food form? Is it a class 1 or class 2A carcinogen, as in processed meat like sausage or hot dog or something like deli meats or something like that, which are as closely linked to cancer as cigarette smoking and lung cancer? And this has been shown time and time again through studies. Or is it coming in a package filled with vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber, water, nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator, increases blood flow, and all this great stuff? So in our obsession with protein, and I do want to say one more comment about that, the foods that cause inflammation are refined carbohydrates. You say, well, that's not a protein source. Yeah, but they're often like a bun, with a hot dog or with a burger, or with a sandwich or whatever, bread like that. It comes with that protein focus. So refined carbohydrates could be all those things I mentioned, or pastries, donuts, all that. Fried foods. What's the food of choice for so many people? Chicken nuggets, wings, fried food. Soda and sugary drinks. Be careful about that. We talked about even one sports drink from popular brands that might rhyme with Gatorade or Our Aid or something like that, could have your entire recommended daily intake of extra sugar in one 24 or 32 ounce bottle for the entire day of extra sugar. Again, causing inflammation. Red meat, processed meats, and animal fat like margarine, lard, things of the like. And Matt also mentioned some of the foods that help combat inflammation. And I'll just read them because they're listed in our book. Tomatoes, leafy greens, nuts, fruits, berries, and like he mentioned, turmeric and ginger and tart cherries, some of the foods that we talk about in specific detail in supplementation chapters and all of that. One more thing, and we're going to get into supplements here. Just really quickly, I think it's worth noting why protein, which is why many of you are here, 1,200 of you and many more thousands watching later are here. Why is that so front and center? And it largely, we talk about it in the book, The Plant-Based Athlete, but largely it has to do with post-World War and trying to get nourishment for our families and seeing meat, dairy, and eggs as the pinnacle, the most nutrient sources of food. And a sign of stature and wealth and all of that. And then we invented things like the microwave and televisions and TV dinners and fast food restaurants and family diners and fast food immediately delivered to our house to modern day, Uber, DoorDash, whatever. I want fried food delivered to me, protein rich, covered in sugar, oil, and salt. So I get addicted to it and I want more. And then we created a multi-billion-dollar supplement industry, largely focused on vitamins, minerals, and protein. So on that note, Matt, I know a lot of people are interested in supplements. Bodybuilding background, running background. You've written multiple books about this, as have I. We interviewed a lot of athletes. What are athletes taking these days and why?
Yeah, good, Robert. Thank you for all that. Before I do get into that, because I do want to talk about protein as a supplementation option, because people are wondering about that. I don't know if you mentioned protein for people over 65, which kind of recently has been in the news a lot. Can you mention really quickly if those recommendations differ, just so people have some context before I talk about protein supplementation?
Yes, thank you. And it's in my notes here as well. Yes, so basically sarcopenia happens when we age. It's a natural occurring thing. As we age, we lose some of our skeletal muscle mass. And to fight that, we need to consume a little bit higher intake of protein. Why is that? That's because our calorie intake goes down. As we age, we eat fewer calories, therefore we eat less protein, but protein is still required to maintain muscle mass and structure and prevent injuries and all that kind of stuff. So the recommendations, as I mentioned earlier, 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight is general recommendation. But when it comes to over 65, it's actually the same recommendations for athletes. 1.2 grams to 2.0 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So again, for women, that would be starting at 93 grams based on the average height and weight of American women, and for men, 109 grams starting, and then up from there in that range I mentioned earlier. So thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to call that out because that, I know, and I've been reading some of the comments here. I think people really like the story of we're being sold this story of needing way too much protein powder, or not protein powder, protein in general. and that it's a conspiracy, and like I get that, because for a decade I sort of believed all that, but I do pay a lot of attention to the science, and to me more and more it seems that the science is starting to point to the idea that we actually do need somewhat more protein than I think a lot of those of us in the plant-based community, especially those of us who like to sort of write it off as like, and sort of say the opposite. We don't need any protein. We don't need to think about protein. We just eat whole food and we get all the protein we need. For a lot of people, that may be true. But I think especially as some of this research comes out, and particularly for people age 60, 65 and above, it is important. You're seeing more and more of an emphasis, even among people who aren't, I don't consider in that the bro science paleo crowd, saying that protein is the end all be all. You're seeing more and more, to me, reputable scientists saying we do need somewhat more protein than you get by just eating plant food and not thinking about it. So I'm not going to say that I definitely agree that you do. I honestly still don't know exactly the ideal amount of protein. I don't know if anybody does. But I do pay somewhat more attention to it now than I did before. Not because I'm older. I'm 41, so I'm not really close to the 60 or 65 group yet. But I don't know. It's just somewhat more of a concern for me than it has been before. Not at all to say you have to take a protein supplement or something if you're going to be plant-based. Absolutely not. If you have the energy and the attention to focus on it, and you've got the time to make sure you can get that in the amounts that you were recommending, Robert, with those specific numbers. And if you do some Googling, you can find those numbers, or people we can share links perhaps to the sources. You can get that amount absolutely from just whole food. You do not need a supplement. And until recently, I really didn't almost ever take a protein supplement. But it's something that to me, like, there are reasons to get it. Like if you're into bodybuilding, for example, and you're trying to get a large amount, or any sport, and if your philosophy in that sport says I need a very large amount of protein, which not all bodybuilders would say is true, but some would, then that's a case for protein powder, perhaps. More generally, it offers convenience. If you're not able to do the amount of planning and food preparation, like the time it would take to get the amount of protein that you calculate that you need from those numbers Robert just shared, then protein powder, to me is a reasonable consideration. I don't think it should be your primary source by any means. I think if you're going to do it, you should try very hard to get it from sources that are, as close to whole as possible. You're not going to find a whole lot of whole food protein powders, simply because if it's whole food, it's not really protein powder anymore, because there aren't foods that are they're plant foods anyway, that are pure protein. So it's something to consider. If you do look for lysine, Robert talked about the essential amino acids. A lot of people understand lysine as it's sort of called the limiting amino acid. And the idea being that it's very possible to get a whole lot of protein powder, I keep saying protein powder, to get a whole lot of protein without getting a whole lot of lysine. But lysine is essential, and it is known as the limiting one, because the idea is they tend to say, if you are getting enough lysine on a plant-based diet, you're probably getting enough protein in general. So that is one to think about. It's in a lot of plant foods. It's in tempeh, seitan, lentils, tofu. Those are the four kind of big ones that a lot of us do build into our diet, perhaps on a daily basis, if not several times a week. So great if you're eating those. It's also in things like amaranth, quinoa, pistachios, pumpkin seeds, things that some of us eat often and some of us don't. So that's one of the ones to think about. Those are some foods you can really build your diet around if you're serious about getting all that stuff without a protein supplement. But that's kind of the thinking that goes on for me when I'm thinking about, should I be supplementing with protein or not? And like I said, I just want to repeat this because I know people are kind of sensitive to this. You don't need to take a supplement to get that stuff. It's just a matter of, can you put in the time? So if I'm traveling a whole lot in a certain period, or I'm really busy with something else, then that'll be a time when I will lean a little bit more heavily on a supplement to give me those. But if I've got all the time in the world, then I'm happy to just get those things from there. There are other supplements, arguably more important, perhaps not even arguably more important than protein for a plant-based diet. A lot of people know B12 is one of the big ones, and it's for good reasons. That should be one of the big ones. Everyone, athletes or not, who is going to eat a plant-based diet, to me, should be taking B12. I know there are exceptions who will say they get it from dirty produce, or they'll just say they keep testing and they don't take it and they keep testing fine. That's great. But statistically, I really do think you need to take a B12 supplement if you're going to eat a plant-based diet for a long term, 100% plant-based diet. Vitamin D is another one. Not everybody needs vitamin D, but a whole lot of people do, including those who don't eat plant-based diets. And that goes for B12 as well. A lot of people are B12 deficient without eating plant-based diets, simply because, the soil these days is unfortunately devoid of so many nutrients. And it's just, you can eat an omnivorous diet and still be shy of the numbers you should be at for these things that are considered, typically considered plant-based deficiencies. And the final one is the omega-3 fatty acids, DHA and EPA. I'd say the final one, but really it's the one. And in fact, these are two of the big three. I think B12, D3, and DHA, EPA. DHA, EPA is omega-3 fatty acids. A lot of people think, a lot of vegans especially, think they're getting all the omega-3s they need because the food they buy claims that it provides a large amount of omega-3s, or because they've heard that walnuts and flax seeds provide a lot of omega-3s, which is true. But what they provide is ALA, and that's not the same as DHA and EPA, which, as far as plant-based foods goes, really comes only from algae. So you kind of get it from a supplement, or you don't get it at all, unless you're lucky and your body's one of, I think less than the majority that can convert excess ALA into DHA and EPA, but it's not all that common. So I tend to be on the safe side and suggest that people take a DHA and EPA supplement. It's going to be algae based. And I think B12, D3, DHA, EPA, that's kind of your covering the bases on a plant-based diet. And if you're sort of the minimalist mentality and you don't want to do any more than that, I honestly think you're fine. You can make the effort to get other things. And if you're eating a good, really varied diet, you will get a lot of the other nutrients that sometimes can be low. And just really quickly, I don't want to spend much time on them, but zinc, iodine, selenium, and vitamin K2 are the other ones that I do supplement with. Like I said, they're the ones that you can get from food. It depends kind of how careful you're being. So it's not that you need to get 8 or 9 things from a plant-based supplement. I think getting the big 3 is good. And these remaining ones, zinc, iodine, selenium, and K2, you can get from different sources. But if you want to just sort of cover all the bases, you can get them in a supplement as well. So that's kind of just like the average, non-athlete eater. Athletes, honestly, it's not that different. Like creatine, very controversial supplement among plant-based and non-plant-based people. There are some decent arguments for plant-based people taking creatine, but it's sort of a relatively new thing. So there's not still that much research on it, or at least not that much long-term research. I tend to think of it as safe. I have not seen evidence to the contrary. And it'll give you a boost in athletic performance and muscle building potential, and you'll put on weight if you take creatine. It's not an all the time forever supplement, but I think it's something you can do without too much risk. And I mentioned protein as another athlete supplement. Earlier, I mentioned tart cherry and turmeric, which I think are great. If you want to call those supplements, those are 2 that I very often take, especially if I'm training heavily. Ginger is one Robert mentioned, another anti-inflammatory, very powerful, very natural anti-inflammatory. And you can also just eat it in food. If your diet has ginger all the time, wonderful. It just doesn't tend to show up that much in that many people's diets. So that's another great one to consider supplementing as far as like boosting recovery. And there are many more you can get into. Very serious athletes will talk about branched chain amino acids and many other things. But to me, beyond the ones that I've mentioned here, the additional potential risk or cost, or even like the downside of reintroducing some of the proteins that people who watch Forks Over Knives and are fans of Forks Over Knives understand, that a lot of the proteins that were supposedly so good about the animal-based diet, that's what often ends up kind of having this cancer link or having other health downsides in the long run. So like when people reintroduce branched chain amino acids into their diet, on a plant-based diet, to me, you're kind of defeating the purpose if you are on this diet for the longevity and long-term health span benefits. So I don't get too much into the sports supplements. I think for the most part, a lot of them fall into that category. But the ones I've mentioned here are the ones that I've experimented with, or some of them use on an ongoing basis.
Thanks, Matt. And it might be worth, just for full transparency, me saying that I haven't used any sports nutrition supplements in 10 years. I'm still 200 pounds. I was 220 pounds last year, the biggest and strongest I'd ever been in my entire life. That was actually directly inspired by Forks Over Knives. And then when I took Dr. T. Colin Campbell's plant-based nutrition course through Cornell University, it challenged really what I thought about my particular needs for sports nutrition. I'm probably maybe a little bit more nuanced or focused on the minutia, eating the right types of whole foods, where I don't need to supplement as much as someone who's maybe a little more careless or not paying as close attention. And so obviously supplements can play a massive role. Many people use them and they can help a lot of people. And, you and I both encourage people to get blood work done. We've done that for ourselves, and we continue to do that to find out, like you said, Matt, I was actually low in vitamin D, even though I'm outside in Colorado sun with my shirt off all the time, or in a tank top going on dog walks. I still needed to boost that up. So I started to supplement, and of course, Complement and other brands provide that. I just want to
before you go on, you mentioned transparency, and it reminded me, I should have mentioned, I have a company that sells supplements, and this is not intended to be an advertisement. It's called Complement, but I'm only bringing it up because if I'm recommending supplements, then I should also acknowledge that I do have a company that sells some of these supplements. So just to understand, like I do have that additional, I guess, conflict of interest, if you want to call that. But someone else shared it in the chat, and I'm glad that they did. Just wanted to get that out there.
Well, and the reason why you created supplements was to support, your own nutritional needs, desires, and that of your family and friends and the no meat athlete community, who you notice were, some people are low in certain vitamins, minerals, things of that nature, where supplements can be very, very helpful. And my background in bodybuilding, so many people do rely on creatine, branched chain amino acids, and all these types of things, protein powders and the like. And for some sports, it might be a little bit more conducive. But for me, and I'm transparent about, I'm not trying to win any competitions these days. I was telling that to the guy at the gym yesterday. I'm like, I had my decade of a bodybuilding career, and right now I'm training 4 days a week in the gym and going on dog walks 7 days a week. And I'm just training more for longevity and health and that type of thing. And so my diet reflects that. I wanted to quickly mention, I know we're getting a little short on time, but we did talk about, so what the heck do plant-based athletes eat? Obviously, in the plant-based athlete, we interviewed 60 world-class plant-based athletes who shared a day in the life routine. They shared exactly what they eat from morning until night. We interviewed a dozen Olympic athletes, a dozen world champions, dozens of professional athletes, some who are Olympic medalists and professional athletes who have been vegan since birth, other ones vegan for a few years, other ones who more identify with a plant-based diet and have followed that for years, and some who have followed it for decades. But I just wrote down a bunch. I'll just rattle them off because you might say, oh yeah, these are some of the things that I eat too. So plant-based athletes do eat things like oatmeal and burrito bowls and acai bowls and sandwiches and wraps and plant-based sushi and stir-fried vegetables and curry dishes and noodle dishes and pizza and burgers and pasta and baked potatoes and smoothies and salads and fruit bowls, and have, snack bars and things like that. There's just some healthier ways to do it than some less healthy ways to do it. And we talk about that as one of the core themes of our book. You mentioned Dr. Furman and the Andy score and how to get the most nutrients per calorie and the best types of foods. We have all of that charted in the book, The Plant-Based Athlete, and some incredible stories of mind-blowing accomplishments that people have achieved. I mean, even setting Guinness World Records on a plant-based diet, or becoming a professional bodybuilder, being vegan since birth, or winning an ultra triathlon world championship, being vegan since birth, or being told you're never going to walk properly, born without a right kneecap in the case of Fiona Oakes, and then setting multiple world records in marathons, running marathons on all 7 continents, or Josh Lajani being over 400 pounds, dropping hundreds of pounds and becoming an ultra marathon champion, and Dotsie Bausch from the Game Changers, overcoming drug addiction and depression and becoming an Olympic medalist, and James Wilkes, who created the Game Changers, talking about his routine from morning till night, and so many other male and female athletes, Julia Murray, former Olympic skier. And I think those stories are worth reading and learning about. And so you can find that obviously in the book, but I did want to share some of those meals that so many of us eat and enjoy. And of course we have recipes. Actually, every recipe in the book is from the athletes themselves. Like, aside from me and Matt contributing, we're athletes too, but the rest of the recipes come directly from Olympic athletes, Megan Duhamel, gold medalist, and so many others. So definitely something for people to check out. So,
Robert, you mind if I
Cyrus? Yeah, I was going to say, is there? I know we're the time is starting to approach here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So first of all, phenomenal presentation. I was sitting there glued to, I mean, I've heard you guys talk before many times. This is not new information to me, but you guys are doing a great job of like laying out the foundations of using a whole food plant-based diet to aid not only in chronic disease prevention and reversal, but also to aid in improving your workout performance and also improving your workout recovery. I can tell you from my own personal experience back in 2003, when I made the transition to a plant-based diet, the very first thing that I noticed after my blood glucose fell like a rock and my insulin use fell down or came down dramatically was that my athletic recovery became very quick. It was extremely noticeable. As an example, I would play a game of soccer, 90 minutes long, pushing as hard as I possibly could. It would take me 2 full days to recover from that, 48 hours before I could go back on the soccer field and play another game at a relatively high intensity. Eating a plant-based diet, 48 got cut to 24. And it was when I got back on the field at 24 hours, I felt better than previously had I waited another full day. So there's no question about it. And then from that point onwards, strength training, bicycling, swimming, all of that. Recovery is no joke on a plant-based diet. It really isn't. So I'm very glad to hear you guys talk about that. There's a theme in the questions that have been coming through while you guys have been speaking. And again, surprise, it's all about protein. Okay. So there's 2 questions that I want to hammer here because these are very important questions.
Sure.
Number 1, I've heard that too much protein can be harmful for your kidneys. You guys are telling me to increase my protein intake all the way from 0.8 if I'm not active grams per kilogram, all the way upwards of 2 grams per kilogram. Is there a point at which, even if it's plant-based protein, that it can become harmful for my kidneys? Yes or no?
That is a great question. And we don't have the data to suggest that it would be problematic. We have some data that suggests that copious amounts of animal protein, I'm talking 300, 400, 500, 600 grams per day, can be detrimental to perhaps kidneys, liver, other organs, and all the other damage that it brings with it. But we don't have any data that suggests that an elevated plant protein intake has any adverse effects. And we're not saying go crazy with the protein. We're just saying what the scientific literature suggests, that if you're burning all these calories, creating all these tears in muscle fibers, and you need to repair, replenish, and grow, then this is the appropriate amount of protein intake to have. And you know me, Cyrus, I've been eating like 10% of my calories from protein for 10 or 12 years now. I'm certainly not a high protein guy at all. I mean, I'm under 100 grams a day. And as you saw, active men should start around 109 grams a day, but I'm even under that, and it's been fine for me. But what we're showing is, to get maximal results, people who are trying to just squeeze as much muscle building, out of their experience in the gym that they can, then a slightly elevated protein intake to the point of these recommendations from various studies is conducive to achieving that goal without any adverse effects on kidneys or liver or other organs when it's in plant-based form. We just don't have that data.
Okay, this is important, actually. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I haven't seen anything personally about kidneys and plant-based protein. There is some research I've seen about animal protein increasing levels of IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1 in the body, which is linked in some studies to tumor growth, and that plant-based protein, even soy protein, avoids that because of the way somehow that it binds something on us. It's beyond my understanding. I just know the research said that it seems that the plant-based protein avoids that problem even in its complete form, which is a great thing. As far as the question about the kidneys, my gut reaction, and this is again not based on any research, I would say if you're getting that protein from whole food sources, you are going to, first of all, have trouble getting up to the levels that it would cause a problem. And second of all, when it comes with all these other things that belong with protein or with the protein, I just think it's far less likely to run into those types of troubles. Where you can get into trouble is when you start taking protein isolates, which is protein in its isolated form, everything else separated from it. Not that some of that is a problem, because some of that, when I talked about plant-based protein supplements, that's what you're getting. So some amount of that is probably fine. But very, very large amounts of protein isolates, that's where you might get into that. If you're getting most of your protein from whole food sources, whole plant sources, I would not personally be concerned about that.
Okay, this is phenomenal actually, because effectively what you guys are both saying is the same thing, which is that plant-based protein and animal-based protein are not equal to each other. They both fall under the protein umbrella, but they have drastically different effects on a variety of tissues, and they have different effects on their ability to promote or reverse inflammatory processes. So
Correct.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm very glad to hear that. And for those of you who are listening right now, take this information, very seriously, because it's pretty amazing that you can eat a diet that can not only reverse many chronic diseases, but also be very powerful for improving athletic performance and recovery. And it almost as if there's zero side effects of it. I mean, there are zero side effects of it. It only helps. In the scientific world, it's hard to find something that's like, 100%, that has the results only in like inducing improvements in health and has very little, if no side effects. But a plant-based diet is truly one of those. Another theme that keeps on coming up here is about, is it smarter to eat your plant-based protein throughout the day in small doses, or is it better to have larger, blocks of protein once or twice per day? Any ideas on that?
I don't have a definitive answer. I tend to think the most natural way to eat, think back to a lion eating, unfortunately, chasing down its prey and getting an occasional meal. There's a randomness to that. That isn't a very regular dose of protein throughout the day. Not to say that we're going to be the same as lions, but if we can extrapolate a little bit and think back to how, our ancestors used to eat, to me, not just with protein, but food in general, but especially protein compared to plants, which might be more easy to gather sort of at a very regular rate. I think there's some benefit to randomizing. So I would say if you're going to do it, I'm not talking about massive doses at a time, but I actually do think, and I might be different from Robert and perhaps most people here in suggesting that it's probably better to have some randomization, some lumpiness perhaps in our protein consumption, meaning a bunch here, then maybe someday not that much at all, and then the next day a bunch more, something like that. And I've heard such recommendations given for things like intermittent fasting, that we can go on an intermittent fasting diet, which I saw people were asking about as well. But the more regular that intermittent fasting becomes, the less effective it actually seems to be. So like having even some randomization in that. So maybe you're an intermittent faster, but every now and then you have a day when you don't intermittent fast. You just eat from the beginning of the day and you eat a whole lot of food all day, as if there was a big glut of food that day. So this is kind of one of my wacky ideas from some reading I've done in other areas. So I can't say that it's backed by much research, but that's kind of what I do.
I think it's more of a pivot to appeal to the paleo crowd who's tuned in here to connect with lions and reference the way the lion eats to try to connect with that audience. No, Matt, you're right. I would probably differ a little bit. Just I'm just more in line with consuming calories all throughout the day with a mixture.
I think he was agreeing 100% with everything I said.
I think his phone might have just died. Okay. Yeah. So in the interest of time, we're actually a little bit out of time. Last question for you, Matt. Maybe you might have the answer to this one. Can a lack of energy be caused by insufficient protein intake? Do you have any idea there?
I think if you've gotten to the point where you're at a deficiency and your body is now trying to compensate in other ways, then sure, it's possible that insufficient protein intake is the cause of your lack of energy. That would certainly not be the first place I would look, though. I mean, our body derives energy first from carbohydrates and fat, protein only when that's all that is left and there is no other nutrition to derive energy from. So yeah, protein is not really an energy source, although it can be. But I would first look at those other things, particularly carbohydrate. Especially if you're used to eating a different way and you've recently cleaned up your diet or recently started exercising, it's very, very easy not to have adequate carbohydrate in your system and your body be trying to use it up and your brain, in extreme cases, your brain shutting down the rest of your body to preserve its own function, to keep itself running. That's what bonking is. If you're a runner and you ever have a horrible run where you just suddenly feel disoriented and like you eventually almost can't move, it's a terrible experience. Do not recommend it. But that's what happens when you go get low on carbohydrate. So, I mean, I would first look to those other places for sure. Think about how around your workouts, can you make sure you're getting enough carbohydrate ahead of time, or specifically in the hour after your workout, make sure you're getting enough carbohydrate. So I would look there first, but yeah, I mean, not to say the protein could never be the cause of that, because certainly it could, but that would be the last place I would look as far as the nutrients go.
Very good. Looks like Robert's phone ran out of carbohydrates. So,
hey, am I back? Am I back?
Sure is.
I may have lost a little bit of Wi-Fi. It's been happening in our neighborhood for like 2 weeks, and I'm like, don't happen on the day of the webinar, and it may be cut out. So I had to go on cell data down here in the basement for a minute.
Awesome. No worries. We're actually, I just wanted to be cognizant of the time right now. We're pretty much out of time at this point. So for those of you that are still with us, we have another, 820 of you guys here, which is awesome. First of all, please give Matt and Robert a round of applause. Very, very, very helpful information. Very nicely presented, and really answered a lot of phenomenal questions here about, the protein myths that circulate on the tabloids and on the internet and on social media and beyond. I see there's a ton of thank yous and claps and thumbs up in the chat box. And like I said, you guys have a bunch of raving fans, myself included. Be sure to check out Robert and Matt's New York Times bestselling book, The Plant-Based Athlete, and follow them on social media. The way to get your hands on their book, correct me if I'm wrong, boys, is to just go to Amazon and click, type in The Plant-Based Athlete and then order it and have it delivered to your house. Or go support your local bookstore if you want to do that. Of course, we're always huge fans of that. But yes, if you have not gotten your hands on their book, I highly recommend it. A lot of very powerful information. And what they talked about today is just a snippet, literally just a snippet of what you will learn in that book. And again, there's there's 60 athletes in there that are profiled. Is that right?
Yeah, we interviewed 60 athletes, and 30 of them have an entire story. You get to hear, their whole story and their athletic achievements, from Olympic medalists, pro athletes, all down the line. And then we have about 25 of them share a day in the life routine, like morning till night, every meal, every supplement, every workout, all of that. And then there's quotes from dozens of others sprinkled throughout the book. And then, of course, about, I think, 60 recipes we have that come directly from these athletes as well. So yeah, 60 athletes and about 40 experts we interviewed, including you and Dr. Campbell and Dr. Esselstyn and Gregor and Brenda Davis and so many others. So yes, we definitely consulted with over 100 expert athletes and those in areas of nutritional science. So
yes,
we could barely touch on, just a little bit today. We covered just a handful of topics. Of course, there's so much more to dive into. And so, we certainly do hope people will check out the book. There's so much to gain from that. And we just, as a team who worked on it for years, we certainly appreciate your support, and it means a lot. And I hope I don't cut out again, Cyrus, but I just want to give a personal thank you to you for moderating this and for making this happen, to Matt for joining, and for Forks Over Knives for hosting. We're super grateful for all of you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you to both of you guys. And Forks Over Knives, as always, if anybody could get the Nobel Prize for really changing the course of humanity, I think Forks Over Knives, the entire team should get it. And I do honestly mean that, because the amount of information and products and services that the Forks Over Knives teams creates to help people genuinely out of the goodness of their heart is tremendous, absolutely tremendous. And like I talked about at the beginning of this webinar, if you are interested in getting involved in their cooking courses, the Forks cooking course is now available for 25% discount if you purchase it before August 2nd. Trust me when I say you're going to be amazed at the quality of the information, how much you learn, and you're going to be amazed at how easy it is to learn from the Forks Over Knives cooking course and prepare delicious and very satisfying meals at home that are going to improve your metabolic health. They're going to taste good, and they're actually going to improve your quality of life and improve, hopefully, the amount of time that you spend on this planet. And who doesn't want that? So thank you, Forks Over Knives. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Robert. We will see you guys next time.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate it.